The Ponemon Institute has been producing its independent global cost of cybercrime study for 6 years. In 2015, the Institute spoke with 252 companies in 7 countries, conducting 2,128 interviews to uncover some very hard truths. But what do those uncomfortable truths mean for your business?
The insider understands the organisation, understands the business, understands the process and can hide.
All industries fall victim to cybercrime, but that doesn't mean every business is a victim.
It's not if, it's when. If you focus on the data, you know where you need to spend your dollars to protect those business critical assets.
The best prepared know their enemy, and the Ponemon report does a thorough job of highlighting what the bad guys are up to. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise's Chief Cyber and Security Strategist EMEA, Tim Greaveson, explains the top trends in this year's report.
Organisations that invest in encryption technology, advanced perimeter detection and security intelligence systems get a much better return on their investment. The second thing that I saw was the cost of cybercrime is increasing, which we knew, but the challenge is also the time to detect is also increasing. So it's getting more expensive, it's taking longer to remediate, and actually if we start to look at the insider threat, it's even more complex, more costly, and it takes a lot longer to detect these types of breaches. The third thing is the application layer is still a big area for the cyber criminal. So it's not just about the perimeter, it's actually about protecting the business's digital assets and the interactions. The bad guy is after your data, whether it be intellectual property, credit card data, personal information.
I asked Tim, as a former CISO, what would you be looking at if you were still on the other side of the desk?
It's focusing on the data. It's focusing on how you can reduce that time to, one, detect the bad guy, because we said it's 243 days on average, and that's going up. But it's also how can you reduce the time to remediate once you've actually found the bad guy doing something. If you focus on those areas, you're reducing that overall cost of the crime. Traditionally, security was all about technology. It was about deploying new tools and techniques. It's now getting much closer to the business so that as a technology and particularly a security person, the language you use needs to be able for the board to understand. You're not talking IDSs and IPSs. You're talking about cost of ownership. You're talking about business outcomes. You're putting it in a language which talks about risk, compliance, policy. The board gets that, and it's enabling the business to do business. So rather than security as an afterthought, it's security by design.
The mean number of days to resolve cyber attacks is 46, with an average cost of $21,000 per day, or a total cost of $973,000. What then is the first step to mitigation?
Classifying your assets is key. So understanding what you're trying to protect is the first thing. Talking and working with the business to understand security by design. I've talked a lot about this in the past, and by security by design I mean actually working with the organisation, understand what's critical, and that could be internal to your organisation, but it could be external. So don't lose sight of your suppliers, your third parties. The key thing is using contextual intelligence technologies. Lots of organisations deploy technologies which collect logs. Collecting a log is great, but if you haven't got any business context around it, you haven't got any business understanding, it's a waste of time. But also trying to reduce the time to find the bad guy. So focusing in the unknowns is really key. So if you focus on all the knowns, automate that process, you can then repurpose your IT staff to focus on the unknowns. One of the stats I read is during an attack, security operatives tend to only look at about 4% of all of the logs coming in, so they get flooded with that tsunami I talked about. So if you can eliminate the known knowns, focus on the unknown unknowns, then you've got a much better chance of actually finding the bad guy.
The Ponemon study says organisations deploying security intelligence technologies realise a lower annualised cost of cybercrime. Tim talks about speaking the language of the board. So, are security intelligence tools just a new cost of doing business, or can they drive real value?
I think they can drive value. I see security as an innovator to business. It helps reduce the cost of ownership, so you can take your IT internal staff, you can focus them, they can prioritize on what they need to work on. But actually it differentiates you as a business because you can use the data that you gather in your system. So we talk a lot about big data and the cloud. We talk about data lakes. Actually, I think we should focus on the data puddle, which is really getting to the nub of the information that's important. Let's use that information we can gather within our security operations centres to really drive new innovation within the business, reducing costs and growing the business as a whole. Differentiate in the marketplace.